Well, hello, I'm Joe, and welcome to the Joe Show, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, sad as we see it, and frankly, as well. There's a new game in town. It's called Let's Compare. Who? We're going to compare Joe and Jimmy. Joe who? And Jimmy who? Well, how about Joe Biden and Jimmy Carter? And what's the comparison about? Actually, it's who's the worst president? Donald Trump says, oh, wow, Carter's much better president than Joe Biden. Not a very good one, but much better. And he makes a distinction. It's an interesting distinction. He said, Jimmy Carter may have mishandled crisis after crisis, but Joe Biden has created crisis after crisis. And that's an interesting distinction. And it's a very serious distinction. And then Trump goes on to say, and I'm sure there's going to be people who disagree with it, particularly Joe Biden, that Joe Biden has had the worst start of any president in history. And if you stop and think about it, there's some truth to that. Take a look at prices, the rising prices, which are 4.2%. And that's the fastest inflation spike since 2008. At the border, there's a 21-year record of immigrants who are being stopped at the southern border, and an unexplained or unexpected rise in unemployment, which suggests that the Democrats and Biden's COVID-19 unemployment checks are stalling the post-pandemic recovery. And what about when you go to the gas station and pump up your fill up, give me a fill up, notice that the prices are going up. And that's going to affect the price of goods and services everywhere because the cost of transporting goods is going to go up proportionally, heating your house, generating electricity, and on it goes. Well, how about the fact that Joe Biden, on day one, canceled the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline? That's number one. And then he ordered a moratorium on drilling on federal lands. So in effect, what he did was he choked off the supply of oil. Now, in all fairness to Joe Biden, the Colonial Pipeline hack wasn't his doing, but nevertheless, it became important because since he shut down the supply, and that Colonial Pipeline, by the way, supplied some upwards to half of the energy demands of the southeastern part of the United States. And in fact, it is the largest single pipeline network in the country. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia were particularly hard hit. In fact, most of the gas stations ran out of gas. So although he's not responsible, nevertheless, the fact that he delayed critical investments in infrastructure, fundamentally because he refused to work with Republicans to pass a clean bill instead of pushing a bill that only, by the way, understand this, his infrastructure bill proposed by Joe Biden, the Build Back Better plan, only directs 10% of the funds to traditional infrastructure. In other words, bridges, roads, airports, tunnels, etc. 90% of the money went to pork and social programs. Now, let's take a look at the Middle East. As I speak, missiles are flying all over the place, from the Gaza Strip into Jerusalem and into Israel. The Iron Dome is doing the best it can to shoot down what's coming in, but it's getting overloaded. And by the way, the people providing the technology and the weaponry to Hamas happens to be Iran. Now, this happened under Joe Biden's watch because, as you all know, when Trump was president of the United States, ISIS went bye-bye, and they concluded a historic agreement to settle difficulties between the Arab states and Israel under Trump's watch. In fact, he moved the capital to Jerusalem. So things were going pretty good. You know, there was no Arab Spring. There was no migrant. There was no genocide going on under the Trump administration. So stability and peace was coming to that region. Not anymore. So what we have here is we have a relief package proposed by Build Back Better, Biden, that's going to spend trillions of dollars, of which most don't even address the pandemic, and they're called COVID-19 relief fund. You can call it anything you want to call it. Doesn't mean that's what it is. Essentially, what Biden is doing is printing up money. And if you print money, you might as well play Monopoly with it because it has no value. It decreases trust in the US dollar and in effect sparks inflation, which is the greatest and the most insidious of all taxes. And by the way, inflation is on its way. It's already up 6.2% over last year. Bush rushes to reverse, or his rush to reverse all things Trump, led him to stop construction of the border wall, to end remain in Mexico policy that Trump had pushed, and the safe third country deals that he cut with Latin American countries regarding asylum seekers and more. By getting rid of those things, he might as well open up the doors to the border. The borders are meaningless. And understand this. And Trump was absolutely correct on this. So we, digest this fact. Without borders, you don't have a nation. And even worse than that is, where is our media? Where is our press? Where are they? What are they doing to inform the public of the policies of Joe Biden that are actually detrimental to the body politic and to your well-being, particularly if you're from the middle class and the working class? I mean, you're being shortchanged all over the place. So, Joe versus Jimmy. Jimmy wasn't all that good. Looks like Biden's a lot worse. On that note, have a good one.